Hello and welcome to the Pots and Trowels podcast. I'm Martin Fish and I'm joined this week by Sean and Jill.
Hi.
And we've got loads happening. We're going to catch up with a friend of ours, Paula Routledge, who's very well known in the horticultural world. In fact, earlier this year, she supplied some of the flowers through an organisation that she works with called Flowers from the Farm. They supplied some of the flowers for the King's Coronation. So what a great thing that is.
They were beautiful, weren't they?
They were, yes.
Do you know which flowers they were? I'm intrigued now because I'm going to go look at some photos.
I think it was at the entrance to Westminster Abbey. Is it the tomb or the memorial of the unknown soldier that you walk round as you go in? And it had a border of beautiful spring flowers around it. I think, don't quote me, I have a feeling they might have been ranunculus stems that she supplied.
But she had to keep, she knew for months ahead and she had to keep it secret for all that time, which must have been
quite
really
a lot of pressure,
difficult.
isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure there.
Absolutely. And knowing Paula as I do, it would be not easy to keep a secret. Definitely not. And she's also started exhibiting at the Chelsea Flower Show, the RHS Flower Show down there, with her wonderful floral art. So she's very, very talented indeed. So we're going to have a chat with her later on. I'm going to be doing a few jobs in the garden as well, just to remind you of things to do. We've got a question as well, I believe, this week from one of our regular listeners and YouTube watchers. So we'll be answering that. And we want more questions, don't we, Sean?
Yeah, we do want more questions. Easiest way to get in touch with us is just to drop us an email. We have an email address, info@potsandtrowels.com. That's info@pots&trowels.com. And if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening to this on a podcast supplier, if you go to the show notes, there'll be links in there. You can connect to us. potsandtrowels.com is our website, and there's all sorts of ways you can connect to us. We're on all the usual places: Facebook, Instagram, what's it called this week? Twitter, X? I don't know. We're on all these places anyway. So just connect to us, send us a message, send us a question, and hopefully Martin will have a chance to answer it next time.
Yeah, I'll do my best. And you've got some cookery tips this week, haven't you, Jill?
I have. It's all about kale this week. If you're not a big fan, then I'm going to convert you.
Yeah, it is delicious and very nutritious, isn't it?
Well,
it is.
It is.
Yes. But we ought to start doing something else, didn't we? Shall we visit Paula?
Let's go.
Well, I'm in rural Nottinghamshire today and I've come to visit a friend in her garden, Paula Routledge, who I've worked with for many years. I'm just going to find out a little bit about what she's doing. And she's here in the garden on a lovely, sunny November day with no rain. Paula, hello.
Hello, Martin. It's great to see you.
And you too. And this is a rare bit of sunshine because we've had it pretty wet and rough for the last week or two, haven't we?
We have. We've got to make the most of this, haven't we, really? Beautiful to feel the sun on your face.
It is, isn't it? It's warm.
It's lovely.
So describe where we're sitting at the moment.
We're down the bottom of the meadow at the moment, looking out onto an uncut meadow because it became too wet to cut it. So we're going to hopefully try and tackle that at some stage. And we're surrounded by fields and we can't really see our productive side, so it's actually quite relaxing down here.
It's lovely because we're sitting at the end of a long grass walkway. The house is probably 200 yards away, meadow either side, some little dachshunds running down.
I'm slightly concerned about that because we've got Oakley, the little dachs, just sat with his ears pricked up. So I imagine any moment now he's going to come running, barking down, followed by a little puppy dachshund there we go. We've got a little bark. Any minute now, he could ruin all this. Here we go.
Okay. So we'll talk more about what you do here, your business, Floral Media, that Stephen, your husband's involved with as well, and all the different types of work that you do. But how did it all start for you? Why horticulture?
Why? I never intended going into horticulture, and do you know what? Back in the 1980s, it wasn't really seen as a suitable career for a girl, I suppose, with decent exam results. And, I had to battle a little bit with my parents to, first of all, let me work in a local nursery. So there was a nursery in our village in Yorkshire, and I started there as a Saturday girl and enjoyed it so much. They actually said to me, well, you're quite, a natural at this. You quite enjoy, I enjoyed getting mucky. I think that was it. I did. I enjoyed getting soil up my hands.
And you like gardening too?
I do, yes, definitely. So they asked me if I wanted to do a City and Guilds, first of all, at Askham Bryan College. And that was just day release at the time. So I went there. on day release. They offered me a full-time job after leaving school. I had a little battle on my hand with my parents for that. And I started at Askham Bryan doing the 1 day a week course and working at the same time. And then eventually the college offered me a bridging place onto the national diploma, which was a full-time course. So that was the next step, and I just enjoyed learning the amazing variety that horticulture offers. Really never really wanted to specialise in anything in particular, so the course I did was amenity horticulture at Askham Bryan, and that gave me the basis really of the grounding of horticulture, and a huge range of huge scope really to learn. I suppose plant knowledge, you've got machinery, you've got lawn care, you've got trees.
And I think the courses then were very different to the courses
Yes.
now. I mean, and Askham Bryan was on my radar, but I ended up at Merry's Wood in Surrey. I intended to go to the Yorkshire one, but I didn't want to do amenity because I'd already done 2 years amenity at Brackenhurst in Nottinghamshire, so wanted to do more the commercial side. But great college, of course, isn't it, Askham Bryan?
Loved it, absolutely loved it. And that's, of course, where I met Stephen. So he was studying agriculture. He was set to go on to the family farm. And we kind of got together, and Stephen put some tunnels up on the family farm. And that was a good enough chat-up line to get me to go to Nottinghamshire.
Exactly, yeah.
Come and look at my polytunnels.
Yes, I must try that one.
Yeah. So it started there, really. They finished as students, and we both set up a little nursery on the family farm, started selling a little bit from there, but it was a tenanted farm, so we couldn't really progress. So we started standing markets, if you remember when market stalls were busy, and we had to queue, every weekend to get a pitch, and then eventually we got a full-time pitch, and we started growing and selling through the market stalls, which turned into like 5 market stalls a week. We both used to go out separately in separate vans.
And then I can't remember how many years ago it is I met you, but it was when I was doing radio. It was when you were at Jacksdale, and you had your nursery garden centre there, so it's got to be 20 years ago maybe, or getting on.
We've been here 22.
Oh, so it's longer than that.
Yeah,
then.
It's longer. I would say it was about 25 years ago.
I didn't realise I was that old.
I know.
Yes.
Time flies.
Yeah,
when
you haven't changed a bit. I feel I have.
Come on, I think I have.
And so that was a very successful business you had there, wasn't it?
It was a quick turnaround from what it was. We bought a rundown garden centre. It had been bankrupt 3 times. We knew we could do it because we'd built up such a good trade with the market stalls. All we needed to do was get those customers to follow us, to the garden centre. And that garden centre sort of rode the boom along with everybody, really, with the love of gardening. It was when we got Ground Force hitting the screens every Friday night, and we used to watch Gardener's World to find out what we were going to get asked for on the Saturday morning.
If only you could have known that a week in advance to buy it in.
Yes, but we were ready for it, on the Saturday. So we rode the boom a little bit, and literally in 6 years we turned that business round into a bit of a beast, really, with 28 full-time staff, a tea room, and we became a bit too much office bound, which isn't what Stephen and I are about at all.
No, I mean, I know you're both very, very practical people, aren't you? As you say, you like to be mucky, you like muck under your fingernails, and Stephen's out there on the land. He's got to be on the land, doesn't he?
Which is where he is right now, digging dahlias.
Yes, we haven't got time to talk to Stephen today. He's busy lifting dahlias. So that ended, and you came to where you are now. That was sort of a bit of a lifestyle change in a way, wasn't it?
Yeah, hugely. We'd sort of come across this site through some friends of ours, and we went away one evening after a social do here saying, wouldn't it be nice to live somewhere like that? And lo and behold, literally a year later, we were able to buy it, and we took it as a bit of a lifestyle change because we still had the garden centre, but we put a manager in, and we came here and had every other weekend off, which was
luxury,
amazing. Because 7 days a week horticulturist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we had a nursery much smaller scale than you, but yeah, you are tied 7 days a week, aren't you, literally?
I mean, you never have a day off really, but it's nice to have maybe a day off to do your own garden, isn't it? And do your own jobs. So
yes, smell the roses sometimes.
exactly,
You've got to
just
do it.
take stock.
And, you know, fast forward, you say you've been here 20 years.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's very different. How much land was it when you came?
5 acres in total.
Yeah, 5 acres.
yeah.
And you developed that. I mean, we're going to have a wander around the garden shortly, but you developed an amazing garden.
Yeah, so the garden was literally full of leylandis. So even before we'd unpacked the suitcases, the chainsaw was out. And all we really wanted to do was, you know, encompass the view, because we're surrounded by beautiful countryside. So we just whipped out the conifers, and we just were left with a blank canvas after that. So it's evolved over the years. We never put pen to paper really. We just sort of used what plants we got, what we propagated, what people have brought us. It's solid clay, that's the only downfall, but we compost everything, you know, and it's been going back onto the garden for 20 odd years now, so the soil is actually okay.
Yeah, it makes a big difference, doesn't it? And one of the lovely things I think you've done, you've obviously created the garden here and, you know, the meadow area, but you've shared it with people. You haven't kept it private. It's always been a part of your business model is to share it, whether people are looking at the garden. And I know you had a bit of you'd still do events here, don't you, for parties?
Lots, and we have coach party visits during the week, and I think that's one of the most enjoyable parts of our job, if you like, is like you say, you just like talking to people and learning from little snippets from them, but the appreciation coming back makes everything worth the while, because they'll always thank you for, you know, being so honest with everything and showing it as it is.
Yeah,
you know.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, and I would imagine, because you're a very sociable person, I bet you love having the groups here, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. It does fill you with pride when you're going round you know, in the summer, in the height of the summer, when you've got everything looking really, really lovely, and people are like in awe of what they're looking at, and we take it for granted sometimes, don't we? Beautiful beds of flowers,
that's
and
right.
you know, you walk past it without stopping to smell the roses, but other people, you know, really, you know, appreciate it, and that's the kick we get out of it mostly.
Well, I know the public genuinely do like it, because you, like I do, we go out and give talks to groups and societies, and I'll often go somewhere and your name will come up in conversation, and they'll say, we've been there on a visit and we love it. I've never had a negative comment. They all love it, so they really do love it. And although you trained initially as a horticulturist several years ago, you retrained in a slightly sort of went off at a bit of a tangent.
So flowers have always been part of what we do. We've always grown flowers. We've even back on the market stall days, we used to grow Sweet Williams early in the season to sell and cut on the market stalls. And I you do naturally get people asking you if you could do an arrangement for an event, because they know they'd see what you do, and I've sort of developed that creative flair over the years, but it's always been within me, I think, you know. So I retrained with NAFAS, the National Association of Flower Rangers, and I now demonstrate 2 flower clubs up and down the North Midlands mostly, although it did take me to the Scottish Highlands recently.
That's to the top of the North Midlands, that. Yes.
Yeah, so there's lots of elements, and since COVID we began growing cut flowers on the new land that we managed to get next door, and we spent COVID really trialling lots of cut flower varieties, and because we realised there was a bit of a gap in the market for supply to florists. So florists do struggle still now today to get hold of a regular supply of British flowers. So we're working at that. We've only been 2 years in. We've got the new land next door. We're using the no-dig system. Here we go.
See him off.
It's going in the right direction. That's the main thing. Yeah, so we use the no-dig system to grow an array of cut flowers, really. And we've got a brilliant local florist community now that regularly have stems of flowers from us, and the pleasure in harvesting your own stems and seeing them go out for somebody else to create things with is also
absolutely, yeah,
you know, quite encouraging.
So can we go and have a look at that?
Yeah, let's
Well,
go.
why don't we, while we're walking up there, because I've got a few jobs that I've done at home that I want to tell everybody about. So while I do that, we'll have a walk up there and I'll carry on chatting to you in a few minutes' time.
Okay, let's go.
Oh, it sounds like you had a wonderful sunny day with Paula there. As we're recording this, it's a bit damp, a bit dismal, and it made me think. She was saying how wet it's been, and we've all been having to deal with the damp and the wet, and it got me thinking about the lawn care, because we did a really good lawn care special. You did a really good lawn care special on the YouTube channel recently, and obviously we can link to the video there. But one thing that struck me is we have this kind of idea that we can only mow when it's dry, and it isn't always dry when I've got time to mow. So it's kind of a conundrum, because I might be working and I'm saying, oh, it's a beautiful sunny day, but I haven't got time to mow the lawn because I'm working. And when I do want to mow the lawn, it's damp, it's wet. Is it going to do it a huge amount of damage if I just say, I don't know, take the top off or something?
No, I mean, ideally, you don't want to go on it if it's standing in water. And if you're walking on the lawn, Sean, and it goes squelch, 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 that's a bit wet. And in fact, when we walked down Paula's meadow, it was a bit squelchy in places. They're on very heavy, sticky clay, and the meadow goes down to a beck that flooded a week or two before. So you would keep off that. But as soon as you can walk on it, even if it feels quite soft underneath, as long as you don't trample it to death, you can put the mower on it. And I do it at this time of the year, mainly to collect the leaves as well, because it's a great way of sucking the leaves up. Don't mow too short, that's the secret. Leave a little bit of length on your lawn. You're just taking the top off it. That gives it a bit of protection over the winter, but it collects the leaves, chops them all up, mixes them with the grass, and as we said last week, they make great compost. So yes, you can do it, but just test your lawn first. The other thing you can do, if you've got a bit of spare time, is get a garden fork and just prod the garden fork into a few areas and push it in about 4 inches, 10 centimetres or so. And it's amazing how that will help the drainage and get air down to the roots to promote healthy growth.
I'll confess, I did actually try that, but then I realised that last time I used my fork, it was quite let's say, a reasonably priced fork. Last time I used it to get out, you know what that's a euphemism for, cheap and nasty. I used it to get a very, very difficult to get out lilac, and I bent one of the tines. So now I've discovered if I try and push it into the lawn, it just destroys stuff. So right, I need a new fork for Christmas. But anyway, that's a different thing. And one other thing, actually, we picked up some bargain bedding plants recently. Have we been done? Or is this a good time to put bedding plants in?
Well, it depends what sort of bedding plants they are. If they're summer bedding plants, you've been done. If they're winter, autumn bedding plants, then you'd be okay. If it's things like violas and pansies and polyanthus or wallflowers, then perfect time to get them in. The ground is still quite warm, or ideal for containers if you haven't got much of a garden. Just make a few small pots and they really add some colour and interest. If you've got a couple of little evergreen shrubs you can get, sometimes the garden centres sell small ones at this time of the year for container work. Put something in like a little hebe or a little pittosporum and a bit of trailing ivy and some of the bedding. It just gives it a bit more height and structure. Looks very artistic then.
Oh, I'll get on that. But no, definitely it was wallflowers that they were, so that's good. It was Wendy who's she's got an eye for a bargain, my wife. So.
Oh, good, yeah. But bear in mind your wallflowers won't flower till next spring, so they're going to get in established. But they're lovely. I love them. It's a bit of an old-fashioned cottage garden flower, but lovely. Well, on the subject of wallflowers, which are members of the Brassica family, believe it or not, they're all related to cabbages. Anybody'd think this has been rehearsed, wouldn't it? But it hasn't. We just make it up as we go along. I've been pottering around in our brassica bed in the veg plot. We have a bed that is dedicated for the brassicas, and they're part of a rotation system.
You make it sound like it's huge.
It's not that big.
Bed,
no, it's not. But in it we grow the kale, we grow cauliflowers, we grow cabbages. So we've got the winter greens in there at the moment with the kale and the cabbages. But at this time of the year, they often develop yellow leaves at the bottom that go a bit mouldy. You can get the cabbage whitefly on them. So we've got nets over our cabbages, which were there to keep the butterflies off. So I've taken the nets off, crawled in on my hands and knees, got rid of all those old manky leaves, and they've gone onto the compost bin. It looks so much better and it will keep them healthy. But we have put the nets back over. Although there's no butterflies around at this time of the year, we've got a lot of pigeons, wood pigeons where we live. And when it gets really cold, and it isn't yet, it's been very mild, but when it does get cold and they're looking for food, they'll sit on top of a cabbage or a kale plant or a Brussels and peck it to death. So it's worth keeping them netted over just to protect your crops so you can enjoy them. And the other thing is just a quick reminder, if anybody's still got any tender plants outside that have still been flowering and looking good, things like fuchsias and pelargoniums, anything cannas in pots, anything that you've had out for the summer that isn't frost hardy, it's going to turn cool sooner or later and get more frost. So bring them indoors if you've got a greenhouse or a porch or just a bright windowsill, but get them in to protect them from the frost. So that's my little 3 jobs for this week.
Can I go back to kale?
Of course you can.
Because kale is officially a superfood, and I'm coming at this with my cook's hat on, really. Sean, are you a big fan of kale? Do you eat it in your house?
We do have, not really. I was trying to think, have we ever had kale? I mean, we've had, obviously, I don't know what the name technically, like Savoy cabbage, is it? The dark cabbages and things. Is it similar to that? Because I've noticed, I've seen it on the videos. Just quick cross promotion before you start on the recipe. If anybody wants to see these raised beds that Martin and Jill are growing in, obviously they're often featuring in our videos on YouTube. But no, kale is not something I commonly have, Jill. So what can you do with kale?
Any of those dark leafy, greeny veg are really good for you. They're full of antioxidants, and kale in particular is a really good one. It is officially a superfood, and it's like an alphabet of vitamins, really. It's got vitamin A, K, C, E. It's just so good for you. That can help. It's got high levels of beta carotene. It's good for your bone health, for the immune system. Can slow down the aging process. It's full of calcium, potassium, fibre. I mean, it's just a really, really good food. I say all these things, it's known to. I'm not a scientist. I don't break down all these things, but generally it's believed to have all these benefits.
And you've only got to look at me to see how it works, haven't you?
Yeah.
Mr. Universe.
Martin, you're about 25 though, aren't you?
I wish.
So yeah, but it will stand quite strong flavours. So you can add sort of chili, garlic, really nice with a bit of balsamic vinegar just stirred through it. But I think some people are put off because it looks quite tough and leathery. But the worst thing about kale, and there are different types of kale, aren't there? But it's the spiny rib in the middle, and that can taste quite bitter. So really easy, just tear away with your hands, tear away the sort of leafy bit and leave that spine behind. That can go in the compost bin. Then it'll just steam or boil 4 to 5 minutes. That's it. And you can roast it as well and make kale crisps. So your two boys might like those.
They're very nice. They are, yes.
So yeah, just toss it in some oil, bit of sea salt, and then sort of medium oven, only about 10 minutes in the oven. Lay them in a single layer on a baking sheet just till they're going crispy and browning, and then eat them straight away, and they've got a real sort of crunchy crisp to them. So lovely. But it's so easy. If you don't really like it to eat it on its own, it's so easy to add into things. So if you're making a fish pie, you could just add it into the fish pie. Add it into soup, into stews, and just lovely, full of lovely flavours and vitamins.
I was concerned that you were going to start talking about slathering it in butter, and then I was thinking surely all those health benefits start to disappear.
You can, and our favourite way, I must admit, is just cook some leeks in some butter and then stir through some cooked kale, and then it gets coated in all those buttery juices. Yeah. But I was trying to sort of, get the real health benefits.
Yeah, but you've got to have a bit of butter's good, isn't it?
Well, it is. Yeah, a bit of fat.
That's what my grandma used to tell me, so it's all good for you. But no, it is delicious. When you come again next time, Sean, we'll make kale soup for you.
I'm a huge fan.
Something to look forward to.
We have got a lot going in the garden, so we do have it most days, don't we?
Sounds good. Look, I think it's time to get back to Paula, and I think we're going to meet Steve, hopefully in the second half as well.
There's a short appearance from Steve, there is. Well, I'm back now with Paula Routledge in her beautiful garden here at Floral Media in Nottinghamshire. Paula, to say it's mid-November, it's looking very, very good.
Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. There's quite a bit of tidying up to do yet, though, for the winter. But the season seems to just go on, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But you've got some lovely autumn colour. Still
nice.
Flower in the garden as well, isn't there? You know, we're still seeing quite a bit of flower and colour.
It does make you realise, you know, what beautiful autumn foliages there are there at this time of year, doesn't it? I think we just need some time, really, and some dry days. It's been so wet.
Exactly,
we just need to get on and get a little bit more tidied up.
I feel I'm holding you up because this is one of the 2 dry days that you should be in the garden. So tell us about the bit we're walking through at the minute.
This is just a little gravel sort of parterre area. We've got a little rose bed in there, a few pheasants kicking around and a few perennial herbaceous plants that I use for cutting for my flower bouquets. So mostly for bridal work I come in this bit. It's got some nice unusual seed heads and grasses and things like that. So I run down here to this little garden instead of running all the way down into the flower field. Yeah.
So we're heading up now past the glass houses, sort of through your gravel area, to the new bit of land, because you've got your original 5 acres, which was where you'd got the business set up, and the lovely garden and the meadow and the glass houses. But then, was it 2 years ago now?
Yeah, it was actually during COVID. The land came up for sale, and luckily enough, we'd got a holiday home on the East Coast. When we sold the garden centre, we bought a little property there.
Yes.
And because of COVID, we were able to sell that very quickly, and we were able to purchase this extra 10 acres.
It's a big plot of land, isn't it? 10
yes,
acres.
It is. So we're not going to flower farm it all. We're on about 2.5 acres flower growing.
Still a lot of cut flowers, isn't it?
It's a lot for just mostly Stephen and I. Kieran's just joined us full time, which is going to be a big help. We've not actually had anybody full time before.
No.
Since we came here, so we'll be able to get a lot more done for the season. And we're getting old now, Martin. We need a bit of young help.
But you also do lots of other things, because you go to events, you do your demonstrating talks to garden clubs. Stephen
takes
talks
you away.
That type of thing.
And
radio, which you used to do, which hopefully will carry on for you. So you're a busy person doing other things, so I can understand why you need some help. So describe the scene then, because you call this your field of dreams.
Yes, field of dreams. So we've just got literally a mile of dahlias that down this right hand side that we're lifting at the minute, and we've not been able to get on because it is wet, as you can see, and you can hear the pressure washer going, and Stephen's actually pressure washing a lot of the soil away from the dahlia tubers.
Right, is that because it's clay?
It sticks to it. So
good question there then, because a lot of people, when you see on social media, say, we never lift our dahlias, we just cut them down and mulch them. But you're lifting thousands, so you must feel that's beneficial.
Yeah, certainly. I think if you're just growing them in your garden and you can get away with it, and you're not growing them for cutting, are you?
No.
Necessarily like we are. We need them to be really strong and the flowers really colourful, so we have to sort through the tubers. If we were to leave them in, quite a few would rot, guarantee, on this soil, and that affects the rest of the plant.
Yeah, exactly. And do you plant the tubers back in, or are you then just taking cuttings off them to get strong new stock?
A bit of both, really. Yeah. So we'll after they've dried off a little bit from the pressure washing, they go into crates now, upside down, back into the glass house, underneath, on top of the bench. I don't know where we're going to put them. We seem to have more dahlias than ever this year, and then we'll keep them frost free throughout the winter, lots of air around them so they don't go mouldy, and then we'll look at them in the spring. Possibly sort them, split them, and put some compost on, bring them on, take some cuttings from the new shoots, but then replant the other tubers back out into the field.
Okay, and just to describe it, we've got long beds, haven't we? So the beds are probably, a metre wide?
They're a metre wide for ease of picking, really, so you can pick without standing on them from either side. We've just taken off all the metal meshing that we use as support, taken all the posts away, and we've pulled out all the irrigation pipes to store for winter as well, because what we'll do next is the crop that is left, we don't strip it out, we chop it up, leave it on to rot down, and then we'll put the fresh compost on top
Right.
of that. So
So
that's the idea of a no-dig, really.
So you're not going into your deep sticky clay.
No.
Just stepping it into the polytunnel because it's a bit breezy out
Oh,
there
yes.
as well. So polytunnels, so again you can be cropping for not all year round but much of the year.
Oh yeah, you can extend your
really?
season.
Yes.
And
So what have we got here then?
so this is for the spring. We've got anemones in here. We've also got ranunculus gone in the tunnel next door. You can just see underneath there. We're overwintering a new foliage in here that we've grown for the first time called hibiscus purple splendour.
Right.
So we grew that from
yes.
seed.
I saw that when I came in the summer. It's got
Yes.
really, really dark leaves.
Looks like an
hasn't it?
acer leaf.
It does, yeah, like a red acer.
Doesn't have a flower.
And that's hardy, is
it's
it?
It's a not fully hardy. So it's a tender perennial, classed
Right.
as a tender perennial, yeah. And it's not, you might think it's woody, it's quite strong.
It
but it's
almost
not.
looks like dogwood
It
from
does,
here with the red
yeah.
stems, doesn't it?
It's classed as
Yes.
a tender perennial, believe it or not.
Okay.
So, but we'll see how that goes. We'll try and overwinter it in here, and hopefully we'll have.
Well, I need to get one of those off you next year to put in the greenhouse because that would make a lovely foliage
Oh
plant,
yeah,
wouldn't it?
yeah, it's great,
Yeah,
brilliant.
yes.
Yeah, grows really fast as well, so you can mix it in.
So the anemones, the ranunculus, they'll all be ready for spring.
And tulips will be going in next,
Right.
soon as we've decided where we're going to put them this
right.
year.
Because did you do them outside last year?
We did them outside. You see, we haven't got enough tunnels yet, so we're hoping to get some planning in because you have to have planning permission now for your polytunnels. So that'll be going in soon. If they'll let us have same again, that would be perfect, and then we
Yeah,
can extend
perfect.
the season. And we also want to grow chrysanths in the polytunnel for next year because we've got them all outside. I don't know if you can see behind that run of dahlias there.
Yeah.
But of course that's been a bit of a nightmare with all the rain.
Absolutely, yeah. But I love to see those spray chrysanths. They're a bit old-fashioned in a way, but I love them.
I
Those
think
to
they're
grow
having
them.
a resurgence.
I think they are, because
Yeah.
dahlias did, didn't they, a few
Yeah,
years ago? I mean,
yeah.
I remember when I was an apprentice on the parks 45 years ago.
Just a few years
Well,
ago.
I left school when I was 8, Paul, as you know. We used to grow dahlias and chrysanths for cut flower then, and then they all went out of fashion. But dahlias have come back big time.
Oh, yeah,
But
hugely.
I think that chrysanths, the spray ones especially, are on the up.
Especially as now the Dutch are not growing so many chrysanths because they're finding the heating costs of
Yeah.
the glasshouses just as challenging as everybody.
And
So
that's the great thing about what you're doing here,
Yeah.
because it's flowers in season,
Yes,
grown
yeah.
locally, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they've got a low carbon footprint, and they're
Totally.
all, you're not trying to force things out of season and using millions of gallons of oil or anything. So-
no, and there is something about English or outdoor chrysanths, let's say, that it has a childhood memory for me because my mum and dad used to grow a lot of chrysanths on the allotment, and I think maybe that's when my first love of horticulture
Yeah.
probably was installed into me, and the smell of the chrysanths always takes me back, to that when everybody took so much pride in their
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody
their
had a few
allotments.
chrysanths
yeah,
in the
and
garden.
chrysanths, yeah.
And I see that you're also growing lots of greenery and foliage as well. It's not
We're
just the flowers.
trying.
Yeah.
I think we could have done with being 10 years sooner on this
Yeah.
land. Really,
We'd all
We've-
be rich.
I know, because the florists are crying out for foliage. It's such an easy thing to grow, but it's a time
Yes.
thing. So maybe in 10 years' time we'll be cropping from those eucalyptus and those. Well, the dogwoods, we might get a crop out of those next year.
Yeah.
they've been planted 2
They've
seasons
done
now.
good growth. I'm feeling really guilty that we're standing in the polytunnel
Oh, no, it's
talking,
nice.
and Stephen's out there wet through. He's been jet. Can
Do you want to have a
will
word
he
with
say
him?
hello
Yeah,
to
let's
us?
have a word.
I don't want him to think, oh, look
Don't
at those
stop him
two
though, will you,
standing
Martin? You
there.
need to keep him
No,
going.
keep working. So, Stephen, look at that for a tuber. You've made a bit wet and soggy over it.
Leaf gall, though.
Oh dear, what's this on this?
Leaf gall.
Ah, on this. This is a dahlia tuber
Yeah.
that you've just dug up,
Yeah, so
and
that
then
just
you're
gets-
jet washing it. So
just
this
gets thrown away.
really. So what these are? Just to describe it, but
yeah.
they're like little warty bits on the top of the tuber.
It's just an excessive growth of leaves.
Right.
The buds have all concentrated themselves, and it's sort of a bacterial infection, and it just causes an overgrowth of buds,
Yeah.
and it's really no good, and it spreads. So
that is no good now. That's
no,
deemed.
and that's the most beautiful dahlia. Look at that.
That is an amazing. Without the gall on it, you'd think that is
yeah. You can grow it, but it spreads easily, unfortunately, and it causes problems in the season.
And it's always around the base of the stem, isn't it?
Yeah.
The crown, so you can't really split it and get a bit off without
That's a
getting
shame.
a bit of it.
There's always a
not
risk.
Too many.
No, well, we've put out of 800, we might have about 20 that we're throwing away.
That's
so
not
it's
bad, but
a major
best to
issue.
get rid of them to avoid it contaminating
Immediately.
the rest.
Yeah, because we're splitting the ones that are coming up as well.
Yeah.
So we've got extra.
Exactly.
So it's not really a problem.
Good.
Yeah.
So how many? You've got 800 to lift. How many have you got to go?
We're about halfway.
Oh, good. Well, I don't want to hold you. Can I just mention, because you've been jet washing, you might need a shower tonight. You've got a lot of mud on your face.
I know.
It's good for the skin, isn't it?
Yeah, all the minerals. You have a mud pack, don't you?
Yeah,
So,
well, I might
I'll
go now and leave you two to have a mud bath.
I might look 10 years younger by the time I've had a bath.
Brilliant. Thank you for letting me have a quick look round. I think it's amazing what you're doing here, and what we'll do, we'll come back in the spring. We'll get Paula working, and me and you will have a chat
Yeah,
and
we'll
coffee,
do that,
Stephen.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Thank you.
So, Steve, I can't get that image of him and the mud pack jet washing those tubers getting absolutely splattered, because I know whenever I've done any jet washing, you start out thinking this is going to be great, I'm going to clean everything, but of course the mud and the dirt has to go somewhere. One thing Paula said, which struck me, she said 1 mile of dahlias. Is that a literal mile, Martin?
It is, yeah. They did mention it, and what it is basically, they've got these long rows of dahlias on the flower farm there, which Steve and the helper was lifting, and they measured them, because they've got dahlias all over the place, and they've measured the length of all the rows, added them together, and it comes to just about 1 mile.
Wow.
So if they planted them all end to end in a long row, it would take you 1 mile to walk down their row of dahlias.
That looks fabulous.
Which is pretty impressive, isn't it? That's an awful lot of dahlia plants.
Yeah,
Awful lot of dahlia plants.
One of our first videos about 4 years ago was about lifting dahlia tubers. I remember it well because we dropped the microphone into the flower bed while you were recording. I can't remember. Was it like the little cover off it or something?
It was the little sponge cover. Never did we find it? I don't think we did.
It's
no.
in your compost heap, still doing the
Probably,
cycle after
threw it away.
cycle.
And of course, we went and filmed. We did some filming at Paula and Stephen's. I think it was last year, lifting dahlias as well. We've done a couple. So yeah, which again is on the YouTube channel if you want to have a
people
look
want to
for
see that Field of Dreams, it's there on YouTube. We'll put a link in the show notes again. But anyway, can we get to this question we've had from the listener?
Yeah, Andrea Bradley, who's one of our dedicated followers for the Pots and Trowels videos. But she says, I've got a question. Is it better to plant snowdrops from freshly dug bulbs, as in now, or wait for them to be in the green?
Good question. I mean, you can get them in the green, which is what you'll get in spring. So that's after they've flowered, they've still got the leaf on, and there are nurseries that will lift them out the ground, dispatch them through the post, and you plant them. They die down, and then they come back for you next year. And that's a good way of doing it. You can buy dry bulbs and plant them in September. Bit late now. The thing is, if you dig up established clumps now, and I'm not saying you can't do it, Andrea, but they will have already started to root. They start rooting sort of, October-ish time, just like daffodils do. If you dig up a clump of daffodils now, they will be a mass of root. So I think if you were to dig up a big clump, as long as you didn't divide it into individual bulbs, you just broke it into reasonable sized clumps of 6, 7, 8, 10 bulbs, they would transplant. But ideally, I think it's not a good time to do it when they're in the start of their growth. I wouldn't do it unless you've got to.
If you're planting a new border, because we're going to be planting some new borders soon, aren't we? And we'll probably find some bulbs that are there already.
Yes, I mean, if you do dig any up, we've got to move them then. But if you can wait, or unless you've got a big clump that you've got to move, dig it up with a lump of soil around it, put it in, it should be out. I mean, they are fairly tough at the end of the day.
It does remind me of my lawn, actually, because this is the classic clueless amateur gardener time, but we had an apple tree that sadly died, so it came down, and I just grass seeded over, and then the next year all the snowdrops and bluebells came up that used to be around the base of it, and then obviously when they went, I did brown patch reseeded it the next year, they all came through again. So is this just a cycle I'm doomed to repeat forever?
They'll keep coming up as long as, yes, I mean, really, you've got to dig them up, Sean, dig them up and put them somewhere in a border.
Just keep buying grass seed.
But But no, exactly. But bulbs are pretty tough. They will transplant. It's not a normal time to do it. But have a go, Andrea. If you've got them, dig them up, move them, and put them where you want them, and they will survive. They will survive.
Brilliant.
So that's it for this week, isn't it? We've covered quite a lot of ground, really. Shall we do it all again next week?
Let's do it. Yeah. Let's do it. Just a reminder of it's info@potsandtrowels.com if you've got a question for us. But otherwise, I'll see you next week. But also remember, there'll be a video on Thursday, as usual, 6 p.m. What are you doing on the video this week, Martin? Jill, can you remember?
Oh, blimey. What are we doing? Oh, well, we've been in the one that's out at the moment is the citrus. We've been in the greenhouse doing some citrus, and we're doing some preparation on the borders at the back of the house. So that will be the one out, getting the borders ready for planting.
Yeah.
Watch the videos on YouTube or Facebook, follow us on Instagram, Twitter or X, and subscribe to the podcast and never miss a thing. For more information, go to potsandtrowels.com.